This is the Henry's Child Podcast. Am I crazy? Or am I just raving?
Well, man, it's great to talk to you, dude. Thanks for coming on and doing this, man, and talking about music and all that stuff. It's great.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Thom. I can't top the Jolly Mon interview you did. I can't top it.
That was
I listened
good.
to it and I thought, oh my God, I cannot. I thought I had an entertaining youth, but I can't top that. I mean, the thing with the nuclear hippies and not hooking up the water in the and them yelling at him for using toilet paper. I thought, all right, okay, I'm done.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Done.
That was
no matter how
good.
bohemian I thought I was just a suburbanite kid.
Right. No, that set me straight. Even me growing up in Eugene, I was like, Oh my God, even I find that extreme. But no, thanks for listening to that and checking it out. Yeah, Carrie was a great interview for sure. I was curious, did you grow up in Corvallis?
I did. My parents are English. They left England. I'm still not clear on this. I've been asking these questions for 50 years now. Dad was Mormon, and he moved to Provo, Utah to get closer to God. Mom wanted a career, and it's England, it's 1950-something. Her career opportunities were secretary and librarian, and that's kind of it.
Right.
And she wanted something more, and she wanted to move to a place that was more progressive about what women could do. So she moved to Provo, Utah, and enrolled in Brigham Young University. That is the part where I've been kind of stuck for the last 40 years or so, trying to figure that out. So in about 1967, Mom and Dad left the church and they moved to Corvallis, Oregon. The irony being that Corvallis also has a very large Mormon population.
Does it really?
Again, it does. Well, it's not compared to Provo, but especially at the time.
Sure, of course.
So again, trying to get answers on this. I cannot get answers out of my parents. They moved to Corvallis, Oregon. Dad taught chemistry at Oregon State, and I had the typical college town suburban upbringing.
How old were you when you started working in radio?
I was 18, 17, I guess. When I finished high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do, other than I wanted to go to college. I wanted to work at the college radio station. That was at KBVR, Corvallis, Oregon.
Right.
I wanted to live in Weatherford Hall because it was this amazingly awesome dorm at the time, and that was it. That's all I knew. So I enrolled at Oregon State, and I started working at KBVR. I just dove into it. If there was a shift I could do, I would do it. So sometimes I was just doing my 2-hour shift, and sometimes I was on the air 15, 20 hours a week. You do the reggae shift? Sure, I'll do that. Hardcore? Yes. Death rock? Yep, do that. Grateful Dead hour? Okay, just give me some tapes. I'll do it. And after about 3 years of that, I realized that what I wanted to do was I wanted to do that. I just wanted to do that always because it was fun. I got to find new bands. I got to break new bands for as much as college radio does that, and talk about music all day. So I just did. I got a staff position, promotions director, music director, station manager.
And is all this at KBVR, where you sort of started going up the chain of command there?
Yeah.
Nice.
So it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work, and I just decided that this is what I want to do. Now I can't major in that, of course, but so I just I studied film and got a degree. And right before as I got home again on graduation, I got an internship at KLCX in Eugene.
What was KLCX? They were a rock station, weren't they?
Yeah. It was 104.7. I think that's top 40 now, KDUC. I think that's where they still are.
Right. It was something in between that, though. So what are we talking? This is probably, 93, 94?
This is 91.
91,
and,
okay.
Mm-hmm. And I got in this really weird time, because started my internship in June of '91. It is literally 4 months before alternative breaks. And I remember this record guy coming in, and he had a new tape, this hot new band. They're incredible. They're going to break and do everything. They're going to rewrite rock and roll. And I'm listening to it, and this is the worst thing I've heard in... But I'm the internship. I'm just the intern, so I'm just keeping my mouth shut.
Right.
And he turns to me, and he asks what I think, and I said, as diplomatically as I possibly could, I said, they sound like Starship circa 1985.
Oh, my goodness.
He turns to me and says, yeah, I know. And I'm thinking, that's not a compliment, dude.
That's awesome. Wow. Do you remember who it was? You remember what band it was?
I don't. I wish I did, because it'd be a nice capper for that story, because I never heard of them again.
Right.
So I'm there all summer, and one of the first things I realized was that I knew absolutely nothing about radio.
Really? So in what sense? So KBVR was just different than KLCX? Is that?
Yeah, well, it's college radio. The rules are play the legal ID at the top of the hour, don't say fuck. And that's kind of it.
Right.
And commercial radio is so different. The relationship you have with the record label is so different. That you've got to be playing 5 minutes of commercials an hour, 10 minutes in the morning. So instead of show prep for college radio is you just kind of show up and go, I feel like playing. I think I'll play some X and some Henry's Child and some King Black Acid and let's reach back to the archives and play Billy Rancher and the Unreal Gods and all right, let's go. And commercial radio, then it's pre-automation. So they give you show up and you have a list of songs. You're going to play Kashmir first, and then you play the 5-second bumper card. Like, you're going to play Tom Petty, Free Fallin', and then you're going to play something by the Cars, and then you're going to talk for 10 seconds.
When you manually did that, Logan, and you said this was pre-automation, were these just tapes that you had pre-spun up? Were there like just a couple decks and you sort of went between 2 and 3, whatever, and then you turn the mic on and you kind of had your own little script that you would do, and then you'd play the next song? So if it was, did they have a computer for it?
We didn't have a computer back then. It's both. It's you get these carts. They look like 8-track tapes, and they'll have a bumper on there, just a string of DX 104.7 DX. 96.1 KZL, Oregon's. Wait, I want to get this one right. 96.1 KZL, Eugene's classic rock. And you've got about a dozen of those. You're going to play those at 7 minutes after the hour, 19 minutes after the hour, 31 minutes after the hour. And then there's going to be spots in between them where you're going to do a live break of some sort. A couple of those are supposed to be really short, 7 seconds to 10 seconds. It's 96.1 KZL, Led Zeppelin. Yeah, it's all going to be written out for you, and you're going to read that, and then you go into commercial. And the trick is it's so easy to just read it. In some places, they want you to just read it word for word every time. That gets really boring really fast, and I have the shortest attention span possible. I'm already bored with this sentence. And I read something in the trades once that the trick is read it through, get it in your head, and then you put the card down, and then you tell people the information, so it doesn't sound like you're reading. And so I'm getting still the information, still about 30 seconds, and I'd put some kind of spin on it that would make it more entertaining. I don't know if it was entertaining the audience, but it kept me entertained. I also thought, this is an opportunity to kind of show off for the management that I can do this.
Because you never know when they're listening, right?
Yeah. Also, let's face it, it's an opportunity to kind of needle a little bit. Oh God, there was a guy I worked with. His name is Kurt Lloyd. I don't know what his real name is. He got into a fight with a guy from another radio station in front of, I think, John Henry's, that club downtown. It's just it starts with the yelling and the you suck, now you suck, yeah. What do you,
yeah, sure. Right.
What do you drive, a pussy rabbit? And the guy says, I drive a Saturn. It's not a car. It's a fucking planet.
Oh, brother.
And he even did that kind of. If we were doing the video, you could see he's doing that like crab, flex your biceps and your pecs at the same time.
Sure, right. That's what I saw in my brain too.
Yeah, and at that point, Kurt I've had this, and he just punched him in the face, and I'm not endorsing any of this, either Saturns or punching people in the face or Kurt.
Of course.
But here's the thing: for the next month, anytime we could use, I guess we were giving away a Saturn or something, and every time it came up, it's not just a car; it's a whole planet.
That's awesome.
So you drop that kind of thing in.
Sure. That's
and
awesome.
Sometimes late at night, I'd have to read these liners that were they were really boring and they were kind of inane. And at this point, this is like 1995. Okay, so the internet, it's coming. You're starting to get radio stations putting up websites.
Right.
But I was working at KZEL. It's classic rock, and we have no budget. So what we have is the KZEL Rock line, and you can hear the concert calendar, or you can call another phone number, and it's the KZEL comment line. You can leave your comment about what you think of KZEL.
And were these just pre-recorded lines that people would call up and they would get like concert dates, like Joan Jett is coming to the fairgrounds on, June 20th?
It's not even voicemail; it's an answering machine. So I've got to say, if you've got, we're interested to hear what you think of our radio station. So you can call the KZEL Rock line. You can call the KZEL concert line at 541-314-9610. I have no idea if that's the real phone number. Please don't call it. Please don't. It's probably
it's probably some grandma's like mobile phone now or something.
Well, after I've read this 60 or 70 times, I just started getting silly with it. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, and at the time I had a second job, so I'm working like 12-hour days. I'm just, 3 o'clock, I'm exhausted. I know how it is. You're 3 o'clock, you're up late, you're listening to the radio, you can't sleep, you're getting depressed, you're wondering if there's any meaning in your life. You're wondering what is the universe's plan for you. Wonder if there is a plan. You're sitting there alone. You're depressed. You're wondering about the angst. You have the first 4 Black Sabbath records all playing in your head simultaneously. You're looking for an answer, and you're wondering. You're getting desperate. You want to reach out and find if there's anyone who cares about you in the world, and you don't know what to do. You don't know who to call. What should you do? Well, you can call the KZEL Rock line and get all the concert dates that are coming through. Who's coming to La Luna? Who's coming to Portland to play the arena? That's the KZEL concert line at 541-314-9610.
That's awesome.
I don't know if anyone else found it amusing, but I did, and that's what's important.
Yep. So you went from KLCX to KZEL, which was classic rock, which was the format. So what happened there? How long did you go from intern at KLCX to actually being a paid staff member? I remember that kind of being a big deal for people in radio. It was,
because, internships can last, you can be 30 and you're still an intern.
Right.
So at first I was an intern for the summer, no money, but I got 12 credits, so I guess technically I was paying to do that. At the end of the summer, there was an opening at the radio station, and they decided to get rid of the guy who did the overnight shift. That would be X-Ray, who went on to become the program director at KRVM. X-Ray is an amazingly awesome guy. So what they did was they cut up the overnight shift, the midnight to 6, into 2 shifts, midnight to 3, 3 to 6, and they split it between me and the other intern, Theron. They gave us each 3 hours, and they paid us minimum wage, and we were grateful. So every day I show up for work at 2:45 in the morning, and I do my 3 hours with a smile on my face, hope for any other task they're willing to give me. Can you record the weather report for the AM station? Yes, I can. And
you started work at 2:45 in the morning is when you started work.
I'd arrive at 2:45. I would start at 3 o'clock.
Wow.
And for a while I was driving in from Corvallis to do this.
Oh, for reals? You weren't even living in Eugene?
No, because I was still.
Goodness, Logan.
I had to finish school. I needed an anthropology credit, I think, and I needed a PE credit. So I'm in school. I'm living in the dorm. I'm taking 4 credits, and I'm working the night shift in Eugene.
Oh,
and
wow.
Now this is now the fall of '91, and I was also writing record reviews for the school paper, and this weirdest thing happened. I'm walking to class, and I ran into someone else in the paper for the school paper and from the radio station, a guy named Doug Christ, and he said, "Dude, I got the new Nirvana. It's amazing." Oh, okay. Well, I'm not surprised you find it amazing because you love Nirvana. Then I ran into this girl I know, Adrienne Lewis, and she went on to do a lot of radio in Portland, and she was just all about top 40, and that was her thing, just top 40 dance pop. That's what she liked, and that's it. Mm-hmm. And she said, "I just got the new Nirvana. It's fantastic." Well, that's odd. This is like October. If I'd prepared for this interview, I would have looked up the date. This is the day of release of Nevermind. So I went to class. I came out, and out of class, I went to the school paper, and my editor, the editor of the entertainment page, he's a metal guy. He's got the full Zeppelin catalog. He's got the full Metallica catalog, autographed Motley Crue stuff, and he's listening to Nevermind.
Whoa!
And I said, "Dude, what?" He's, "Oh my God, these guys are amazing. There's something going on." So I went to the bookstore, bought a copy of Nevermind, and I dubbed it to cassette really quick so I could listen to it in the car. And I drove to listen to it on the way to Eugene to go to work. And I'm, oh my God, this is the best album I've heard since Nothing's Shocking. I pull into work at the radio station and walk into the music director's office, and he's listening to Smells Like Teen Spirit. Why are you listening to Nirvana? This rocks. And that's when I realized that something was happening.
Right. Yeah.
And it was so odd to me that it was all on one day I could feel a sea change happening in music. And that doesn't happen. Usually it's within your subculture, or it happens slowly, but I've got these 4 people who are very, very different, with completely different tastes in music, coming from completely different subcultures. The only thing they have in common is that they're into music, and they all think Nirvana is the best thing they've heard in months. And at that very moment, I realized everything was about to change. And I was right. Eric Warden's the program director, and he recognized that there was a sea change coming in music, and we started adding a lot more current music. So we're playing 3 brand new cuts an hour, 5 that are relatively new, that they've been released within the last 5 years. I know that doesn't sound like much, but you only get to play 10 songs an hour. We're still trying to cover everyone from age 18 through 45, and that's a big range.
That's a big bracket. And then, so let me ask this though, because now I have no idea how things are ran, and in fact, they're depending on who you ask about the music industry today, you'll get very different answers from different people of different walks of life. You can also, by the same token, you can do everything yourself these days. So I'm curious, Logan, back then, was there what role did the record companies play? So would they send you new music and then say, okay, here's like kind of the cuts we want you to play, and like did that have to filter in through your manager, or how did it work back then? How did you determine which songs to play? Because if you said there was only 10, that's not a lot of music, man.
Here's the way it works. You get 10 songs an hour. DJ does not pick those songs. You get a list. And that list is generated by a computer program called Selector. What you've done is you've entered the program director / music director has entered in all of the music you want to play, band, title, album, length, where it fits in a specific category, A rotation, B rotation, C rotation, recurrent, or library. And you set up rules for how often that song should be played. A lot of times there'll be a rating for the tempo of the song, whether it's anything from Dirge, say Hurt by Nine Inch Nails, up through Chainsaw, and that would be anything by the Ramones, I guess. You set up an algorithm that picks the music for you. You've got rules that are set in there for not too much repetition, like you're going to play a recurrent, you're going to play a classic at the top of the hour, and then you're going to go to something new, and then there's break, and then you're going to play a recurrent, something it's in your library. It's a couple of years old probably, and you just kind of repeat that. And then there are rules like don't repeat the same artist twice, don't play the same artist within an hour of you don't do two Zeppelin tracks within an hour unless you're putting them right, doing a double shot.
A double shot of Zeppelin. So Logan,
double shot Tuesday.
So Logan, was this sort of the 1995 version of Spotify?
Yeah,
but for radio stations, of course.
I guess so. This was in place when I showed up in '91. Breaking format, the jock playing something that wasn't on that list, generally frowned upon. It just kind of depends on your relationship with the program director. How much trouble you're going to get in. Sometimes you just, you make a mistake with a CD player and you play the wrong song, and you play Turbo Lover instead of Breaking the Law. It's going to happen.
Right.
And sometimes you just decide, I cannot face this Cars song tonight. Screw it. I'm not playing that. And it just depends on your relationship with the program director. Some places will just straight up fire you if you break format once.
Right.
Yeah, and then there are some jocks who just no, I'm not doing that. That'll get you as far as into the DJ booth. How it gets that far, the record company is going to send you a stack of records, CDs, and you're going to get a lot of them. They'll send you the album, they're going to send you the single, and they're going to work the same single to every radio station simultaneously because they want that single to move up the charts. So Metallica's Black Album comes out, the single is Enter Sandman, and that's what they want everyone playing. So they've got the video on MTV, they're working that Enter Sandman first to rock radio and then to top 40 as well. Ideally, you listen to it, you said, yeah, that's good, I'll add that, you report to the trade magazines that you've added that. That week they report who's added it and how popular the song is. The record company has a promotion person who calls you. Hey, you got the single? Yeah, I did. You listened to it? Yeah. What do you think? I like it. All right. Or I don't like it. Well, can you listen to it again? This is really hot. We're really pushing this. Or really, this is a big deal. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the promotional budgets are massive. And they send you stuff. They send you copies of the record to give away on the air and also for your collection. So there's a little pressure there. They want you to play that record.
Sure.
And that's where we start getting into crime.
What do they call it?
Payola.
Payola, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's so illegal that it's very difficult to get anyone to talk about it on the record. Interview about what they consider legal and what they consider illegal in case they're wrong. It is totally legal to fly a program director to L.A. for the weekend to see Tom Petty because Chris Whitley is opening for him, and they're pushing the Chris Whitley record, and they put you up at the Hilton. You've got front row seats, backstage passes to the concert. They're going to feed you, take you out to a strip club, whatever you're into. and the record company pays for it, and that is totally legal.
Okay.
Giving you $100 to play the record, that is totally illegal. Yeah.
It's like rockstar lobbying, right? Like, is that?
It is. It is
Yeah.
exactly what it is. There's another level to it, and that's that the record companies will hire consultants to also work the record and promote you, and that makes it a lot easier for them to give you stuff to play the record. And then there's another level on top of that, and that's the radio stations hire consultants to say what they think you should be playing and tell their opinion. And how much you listen to their opinion can be, you can either push back and say, I just hate this song. I really don't want to play Oasis. Or in some cases, the program director is supposed to just do what the consultant says, and that's their marching orders.
Mm-hmm.
And since that consultant might be consulting for 50, 60 radio stations, you can imagine how valuable it is for the record company to lobby that consultant.
Oh, of course. No, totally.
Yeah.
Wow.
Basically, it's like politics, but with a better soundtrack. Yeah.
So by now, you are a full-on DJ. You're obviously gainfully employed by these radio stations, and you're probably a little bit of a demand at this point. So where did you meet Henry's Child? I feel like we probably met you through Jace Edwards.
We were it's 95. I was working at Z-Rock.
Z-Rock, that's what it was.
Yeah, 95.3 Z-Rock. And every Tuesday night, we hosted a show at the Red Lion in Springfield, Oregon. Got to book bands for it, and I booked you guys. But also, Jace Edwards. We were friends, and they were roommates. Well, Jace, he's just this ball of energy. He's like a terrier on espresso. I don't remember if I met you guys through him or if it was constantly booking Henry's Child to play the Rant. I don't remember, because I remember you played it 3 times that summer.
Yeah.
And
well, it was a weekly thing, wasn't it, Logan? I mean, every week somebody new would come in and play. And I distinctly remember the Red Lion. And then the summer part that you're referencing was it got so big they had to move it out to the outside. And I remember there was like the tennis courts for a while.
Yeah.
Remember that? Because the freeway's like right there on the main strip in Springfield.
I remember this. So the way it all happened was that the reason I was working at Z-Rock was, I've been working at KZL for about a year or so, and I was still technically part-time. I did the overnight shift on the weekends, and then anytime someone was on vacation or sick, I filled in, because it's work, they're paying me $5 an hour, and that's righteous bucks, because compared to zero.
Yeah.
And also, it's fun. I enjoyed the work. It was I get to work. So KZL bought Z-Rock, and the program director, Phil Poulter.
Is that a guy named Phil?
Yeah.
Right.
A guy named Phil.
Yep. That was his moniker, right? Like that was his stage name or something.
Yeah. And he was going to go. He went off to do sales at a country station, and they needed someone to run the station. So they sent me over. I had fun with it. I kept the automation running. I did a lot of studio production, making commercials and stuff. And it was actually the first time I'd ever had a 9 to 5 job. I was 27 years old.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, and every Tuesday we did the Rant. Then at the end of the summer, we were about to flip the format from satellite delivered hard rock to a local station playing alternative. And we decided, since the Rant was being canceled, let's go out big. Why not? Talked to the Red Lion. We booked the tennis courts and did a lot of promotion, and we got what you'd headline, AKA, and I don't remember, it's another band, and that sucker sold out. People had a great time.
It was a big show. I remember that. I mean, that had to have been like 96.
95, somewhere into the summer, 95.
95, okay.
Deal is that one of the things was we had to end it at 10 p.m. because everyone who was staying at the hotel who had no idea what was going on needed sleep. So the rule was, at 10 o'clock, amps are done. Got to shut it down and move everyone into the bar where Pelts were gonna play. And I remember it was 9:58, and I'm giving Andy the cut sign. Done. We're done. Say good night, and we're over. And I point at my watch. What time is it? It's 9:58. We got to wrap it up. He's 9:58. Wait, hang on. We got one. And you guys played "Staying Alive."
Hey, like our 2.5-minute version of the song.
Yeah, you just cranked it out and you ended it right at 10. I'm like, oh my God, they're geniuses.
That's funny. I remember speaking of Andy, I remember one of the perks that he mentioned to you. It was like a last-minute thing. You guys went and saw Bush and somebody else that was kind of like I heard their name and I'm like, oh yeah, like they had like 2 hits or whatever. Like, do you remember that? Do you remember going to the Andy to the Bush show?
I do. It was Bush, the Goo Goo Dolls, and another band. And keep in mind, Bush had 4 hit singles off of that first record. They were big.
Oh, they were huge, man. Yeah, totally.
They had another album and had one single called "Swallowed," I want to say, and then it didn't really happen after that. The middler was the Goo Goo Dolls, and I'd been a fan for a long time, back when they used to be a hardcore band.
They changed formats considerably, didn't they?
Yeah, because they were playing chunka chunka chunka, punk rock, post-punk.
Yep.
And, you fast forward 10 years and they're playing an acoustic ballad. Everybody got to eat.
Right.
But here's the thing, that the opening act, it was some girl pop thing with kind of a ska band, and I thought, okay, well, and they had kind of a weird guitar hook in their single that I thought sounded like a chicken. I thought, okay, well, I guess that's where we're going to go to the bar. And that was No Doubt.
What was the first single? Was it about a girl, or I'm Just a Girl, or something like that?
Just a Girl.
Just a Girl, that's what it was.
And the thing is, I'd been completely dismissive of them because, whatever, they're an OC ska band with a hot girl for a lead singer, and then they've got this chicken thing in their single. Okay, we're never going to hear from them again. Then I saw them play live, and I realized what a great band they were, because they'd been bashing it out in the clubs for 10 years. They knew how to play a live show. It's really easy to be dismissive of that band and of Gwen Stefani, but she knew how to play to a big crowd, and she knew how to keep the excitement up and how to work it, and they were razor tight.
I bet. Yeah.
They were, and I was, oh my God, these guys are an actual band. It isn't just a model and then some session musicians. These guys are good. I actually became a fan of them right there. And for everyone who's grimacing right now, go back and read the lyrics to Spiderwebs. Gwen Stefani can write.
Yeah.
It's I never thought that I would actually be into that band. Their big record, Tragic Kingdom, is actually really good.
Right.
The way that all came about is you get a lot of tickets to shows. If you're in radio, you get a lot of free records. You get a lot of tickets to shows. I got 2. I had 2 to see Bush and No Doubt. And I called Andy and he went, "Hey, I got tickets to see Bush. You want to go?" "Yeah, let's go." Bam.
They used to tour with the Daddies, and
oh yeah,
yeah, they did. They opened for the Daddies on two decent sized tours back when they had, when the Daddies hit was kind of post alternative, 97, which is interesting because 97 is the year that we won the Sonic X-Plosion.
Really?
And was Z-Rock around then? Were they still around in 97?
No, the transition happened in 96.
Okay.
I am still a little bit pissed off about that Sonic X-Plosion thing. And here's why. we had the idea, Jace and I did, at NRQ, because at that time, the best thing that you could really give a band was studio time, because it was so expensive, you know?
Oh, yeah. No, it was really expensive for what it was, sure.
At the absolute bottom end would be $25 an hour, and by today's standard, that's like $200, $250 an hour.
Sure.
For marginally employed musicians, and at the absolute bottom end, you're spending thousands of dollars just to record your record. So we thought, the best thing that we can give a band for winning this thing is studio time. So we put that together, and we got a studio to donate some hours, and we talked to John Bolt at Elemental, because I guess the second thing best thing you can give a band besides weed is to get their record in front of a record label and have them give it a solid listen.
Yeah,
and
sure.
So we got John Bolt to say, yeah, I'm in. That sounds good. And we kind of set it all up in a contest thing as well, so that John was watching all these bands. And I figured if we get 16 bands on this thing, one of them is going to get at least a single released by Elemental. John's going to watch all those bands. If we're lucky, he might sign 2 or 3 of them. And it's a win for everyone. So, and then I got fired.
From Z-Rock? From KNRQ?
From NRQ. The deal is that the guy who replaced me was named Stu Allen, and he was the highest-rated program director in Eugene at the time. I really can't fault that decision. And Stu's a good guy, and he did a good job with it. Before and after, he was always cool. He was always cool to me. So, but here's the thing: and they continued with the promotion, which was good. One of the first shows showcasing the bands in the contest. I'm just walking into the Wow Hall, and I saw, I don't know, I think I saw Jace or Steve Woodward or someone, and they're like, hey, yeah, it's a good show. And said, yeah, it's a contest. This is really going to work out great. I'll bet you Henry's Child win. Okay. Because I thought Henry's Child were the best band in Eugene, and I was right. And that's it, Well, someone overheard this, and they tell 2 friends. They tell 2 friends, and they thought that I was being facetious or ironic or whatever, and that the whole thing was a hint that the entire contest was fixed because I worked there. Well, I didn't work there anymore. The contest was not fixed, and no one asked me about this for months. Just everyone, and I when I found out about it all, I really got kind of pissed off that people would think that poorly of Elemental Records, of me, because there's not much that's really legit in the music industry. This was, and I was proud of that.
Well, Logan, that's kind of what John said when I got him on this podcast. I mean, he said, well, even at the end of the day, these guys were kind of hanging out. So keep in mind too, the other sort of overlying layer to this was we had signed a mechanical deal with Elemental Records. So what the mechanical deal meant was we were using their distribution channels and their sales department.
You mean Jenny, right?
Jenny O and Steve, right? Now we didn't do radio, so maybe Steve Woodward wasn't involved necessarily at that point. But
Jenny was also handling the daddies too, wasn't she?
Yeah.
For Space Bachelor Pad.
Yeah.
I just want to give Jenny off for her to plug.
Yes, yeah. Jenny O is pretty rad. Yeah. And so we had already had mechanical, so we were kind of down there and kind of hanging out, and it was like Floater and Jollymon and those guys would kind of hang out down there. And so one thing John said early on was kind of the same thing that you did, is like, why, if we were going to sign Henry's Child, why would we go through all the trouble of having all these bands come out and do it? And he literally, even 20 years after the fact, right? Like, I asked him straight up. I'm like, did you guys know? He's like, dude, we had no idea till the very end that Henry's Child was going to, win this kind of a thing. Because that very last night with Ritsu
the
and
electric violin.
yep,
She was so good.
she was good, dude. She was good. That was really cool. Remember the whole Godzilla thing on stage?
Yeah.
That was pretty dope. And then it was the Bella Low that played with us too. And of course it was Halloween night. And so, they say that they didn't know till the very last minute. And I know we just pulled out all the stops, dude. Like, we practiced a lot for that. And it ended up paying off. And so that's a trip. So I did not know that you were fired from NRQ by then. And was NRQ your last radio job?
It was the last one where I felt like it was part of a career kind of thing.
And how old were you then?
I was 28.
28. Okay. Yep.
And the reveal years later was that I was never supposed to be the permanent program director. What the management wanted me to do was just manage Z-Rock until they could flip the format, and then get NRQ up and running with the automation systems, and then they could hand it over to Stu when his contract was up over at New Country. But they didn't tell me this. And the thing is, I would have been fine with that because I could support myself when they pay me like $1,000 a month. I could support myself in poverty just doing music and position myself to be just the afternoon guy or whatever once Stu took over. I would have been totally okay with it, but they didn't tell me that. So a lot of what my efforts were to trying to set things up that were going to pay off down the road, like the first concert we produced. It's number 1 in the New Rock concert series. Well, that sounds a little silly when it's number 1, number 2, number 7, but when you start getting up at the hundreds, you're building something so that you can have a big celebratory thing when you get to the 100th concert you promoted, when you get to the 1000th concert you promoted.
Sure.
I'm setting this up to be the heritage rocker in town 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. But if I'd known, I wouldn't have put any energy into that. So when I got blown out there, I was absolutely devastated. It was like my world came to an end because I was program director for an alternative rock station, and doing the afternoon shift, and literally I had been dreaming about doing that job since I was 16 years old.
Right. Yeah.
Listening to Radio Hardcore Vallis, Brandon Leberman on KBVR, and he's up at KBOO in Portland, still there. And
for reals, dude, really?
Dude, Brandon Leberman is responsible for more people getting into punk rock, more people getting into cool music, and more people getting into radio than anyone I can think of. He's like Rodney Bingheimer. Every Thursday night, 10 o'clock, Radio Hardcore Vallis. You're sitting there with your blast box and a TDK SA90 to record the show because it's punk rock in Corvallis, Oregon in 1983. It's like this message from another universe. And when I realized I could do this, and then I could do this for a living, and then the prospect that I could get paid, that I could have a career doing this, that was all I wanted. So when I got blown out, I felt like this was my life's ambition, and I was given this golden opportunity, and I worked 60, 70 hours a week on it and give it everything I had. I quit drinking for this job, and I felt like I'd done something wrong. I'd screwed it all up.
Yeah.
And it was devastating. On my last day of unemployment, I got a job promoting records for an indie label in Portland.
Who was that with?
That was Tim Kerr Records.
TK Records, yep.
Yeah, it didn't really work out. For anyone who's thinking about starting a record label, if you're going to name your record label after a musician, you should probably get that musician's permission to do so. Tim Kerr was not happy about a record label being named after him, and the lawsuits commenced.
I didn't know that.
No, I didn't know that until I'd been there a couple of months.
So TK Records was in Portland, and I think we had played a show either the night before or we were playing a show that day, and I feel like it was for Jace Edwards' girlfriend, Jada, and I feel like it was in a parking garage. Like it sounded very good on the surface, but then when we got there, we're kind of like, I don't know if this is going to work. And we stayed with you in your one-bedroom apartment that I remember was kind of like up a little ways in this big building. And you had just had that thing called the internet.
Yeah.
And I remember we did these kind of like, there was this whole photo essay of a couple that had killed the husband, taken the pictures of killing the husband, but they took them into the photo mat, which is where again we're showing our age here. But they basically took the pictures in to get them developed. I don't know what the heck they were thinking then, but they got busted, right? You remember that? And then somebody took those pictures and put them up on the internet on some like a gross out site or something like that. Do you remember anything about that?
I don't know how I found that link. It was like Boing Boing or Metafilter or Beanpool or something really early. Yeah, it was some biker girl and her biker boyfriend, and they decided, and her complaint was that her husband he'd come home and he put his feet up and watch TV and drink beer. So they decided to kill him, and he came home, he sat in his recliner, she gave him a beer and then did a striptease for him to distract him while the boyfriend came up behind the guy and cut his throat. But that's not enough. Let's take photos. So they've got photos of his dead body, and they put the beer in his hand, and then they've got photos of just his feet crossed on the ottoman after they've cut off his feet off, just his head posed stuck on the top of the recliner, and the girlfriend smiling with all this.
Dude, it's so... I can't even... You're doing a great job of describing this, but it was the most horrifying thing I'd ever seen in my entire life.
Welcome to the internet.
We're looking at this on Logan's 12-inch color monitor. Remember when a color monitor was like, oh my gosh, that was the thing, right?
Yeah. And the bit we're tripping on is that they sent these photos to the photo mat to have them developed because we're going to want to, first we should take photos. Let's get these copies. We're going to want to show these to our friends. Maybe this is our Christmas card this year. I realized that I was spending more and more time on the internet, and one day my copy of Spin arrived the same day that my copy of Wired arrived. And I looked at it, and which am I going to read first? Wired. I realized that the stuff that was happening on the internet was far more exciting than anything that was happening in music.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the only interesting band that year that had broken was White Stripes, and then the Daddies. I decided, the hell with it. There is no future in radio. There's really not much of a future in the music industry proper, or at least there's no future for me for doing anything I actually enjoy. And it's clear that the internet is going to be massive, and there's a lot of interesting things happen. So I moved back to Eugene, and I enrolled in computer science at LCC. I got a job at KPNW, KUGN, Oldies 99, all three, doing traffic reports 2 hours a day. And
wow.
That was my last radio gig, and it was easy. I drive around in the van. I say at 5 o'clock, it's a little busy on the Ferry Street Bridge. Yeah, that's it. I would do it for all three stations. They just space them about 10 minutes apart. Do that from 4 to 6, and I got paid $6 an hour, and it was just enough for beer money, and it was really clear to me. This is over. I don't want to do this anymore. I really don't want to do this. and I just want to focus on learning as much about programming and about computers as I possibly can. And then I had my departure from radio. I went out classy, didn't say cocksucker on the air, didn't even say booger.
Oh wow! Yeah,
a friend of mine was working at this tech startup down here in Silicon Valley, and I told him I was getting out of radio and going to tech. He says, well, I'll tell you what. Why don't you give me a call in August, and I might have a job for you. And I just hung my hopes on that all through the spring and the summer. And we got to August. I'm like, hey, you got that? You got anything for me? Yeah, give me a resume. And okay. And we set up a couple of interviews. I did those at noon or something. And 4 o'clock, I went to work. Right as it was ending, it was just a little bit before 6 o'clock. He called me on my gigantic cell phone and said, "You got the job. Let's do it." And I, whoa! And we discussed salary, and said, all right. And so, okay, you get $40,000 a year, which was 4 times as much as I had ever made in 1 year at doing radio.
Oh, right. No, totally.
And 30,000 shares of stock. And stock. I don't really know what that is.
I might have heard of that before on TV, but yeah, whatever. Okay.
Okay, that's a money thing. I don't know what that is. I'll look that up on Google when they invent Google.
Yeah.
I'll go home and I'll type that into InfoSeek. Anyway, so I drove back to the radio station, and I quit. And I told my manager and the other guy who did the afternoon news team that I was leaving. This is KPNW AM, the home of Rush Limbaugh. It's all conservative talk. Okay. Well, at the time, I hadn't had a haircut in 3 years. Hair is down to the waist, and I generally were down in my face, and I just looked like generic rocker hippie guy.
Sure.
And that's kind of where they put me, in that little pigeonhole, that he's this burnout rocker kid. And he says he's going to school, but I don't know. It's he's studying poetry or something. Who cares? And I said, look, I can only give you a week notice because I got a job working for a tech firm in San Jose, California, and they want me to start right away. And okay, all right. And then I could see it kind of twitching in their head. I guess he really was going to school and studying something. And one of them asked me, "Well, how much are they paying you?" And I said, $40,000 a year. And that's when they got this click I saw, and I realized that I was making more than them.
Oh yeah, at the time, sure.
And I could see this change on their faces, that they had radically misjudged me, which they had.
Sure, of course.
And here's the punchline, is that startup was Hotmail.com, and 18 months later, Microsoft bought the company for $400 million.
Right.
Yeah. Not that I got that. It got $400 million, but it's some of my friends from high school were able to retire by the time they were 30. So, good for them.
Yep.
Anyway, so yeah, and that was my last radio job.
Just to kind of wrap this up, one of the things that kind of got us back together was Andy, Rich, and I were in a band called Mnemonic Machines, and that was all sort of birthed, believe it or not, at your apartment when you were at work. Now, this is before you were married, and this is when Fuller had left some edibles inside the refrigerator. And Rich and I partook of these edibles, and we were watching TV on your couch. I had come down to San Jose to go to a co-location because the company that we were using for the data center was getting rid of these servers. And so I had brought my Element down and pulled the seats out of it and put these ridiculous amounts of servers in the back of my car, just taking them back up to Portland, which is where I lived at the time. On the way down, we had got the new Soundgarden album called King Animal. And Rich and I are on these edibles, and Jarrett was doing a show in San Jose as well, and it was this weird synergy that happened because we had these edibles, and Rich and I were talking, and we go, dude, we could totally play hard rock again. Like, we could totally play hard rock. Why don't we call up Andy and see if he's interested? And that's when it kind of all came together. And then we're eating dinner with you and Jarrett, and the edibles kick in. Now we were youngins in compared to it. It was before it was sort of like legal. It was what did they call it? It was legal for medical purposes. Right?
Yeah,
that was kind of the thing. And so that's what Fuller had left over there. Well, of course, to me, an edible was an edible, right? I didn't realize that he had these, like, literally knock your socks off stuff. So,
yeah. Well, I mean,
in the middle of dinner, these, like, kick in, Logan, and we're just like, oh, my goodness. I'm glad you're driving. Even if they were the least flavor, I feel like I'd probably be very affected by them. But
we're old.
It was very good. Yeah,
we're old. We have families. We don't have time for this.
I know. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
We did the Mnemonic Machines band for a little while, and then eventually, of course, Henry's Child gets back together in 2014. We had reached out to you to write the liner notes of an album that we put together called Retrospective 20. And the reason for that was it was a 20 years reunion show, and it was kind of a couple songs off of each record, some of them that were unreleased. And one of the folks that I got introduced to, originally your wedding, which was probably kind of around the time that we got back together, was Gary Spinrad.
Yeah. And I had literally been trying to get you and Rich in a room with Gary since the mid-'90s. It never seemed to happen. Gary was, at the time, starting in the mid-'90s, he was doing composition and sound engineering for video games, Phantasmagoria 2, A Puzzle of Flesh. He did a whole bunch of them, but the biggest one is he did the sound for Call of Duty. He also was in the Spider-Man games, and he worked on the Call of Duty franchise for 7 years. He's brilliant with Pro Tools. If you play video games, and it's Call of Duty. Doonesbury did a whole week of strips about Call of Duty. And literally, that's how good Gary is. I've known Gary since junior high, and I always wanted him to produce for you guys, or at least just get in a room and jam for a while and see what came out of it. And then finally, you guys were all in the same state at the same time, and he was able to, and he had the time, and you had the time, and the project melded. So he was able to do some production for you.
Yeah. So after the reunion show, and we had played a couple of times out in Salem and Eugene, we realized that doing another record was something that we wanted to do. And so we asked some of the folks who were booking, and they were like, you know what, it'd be awesome if you came out with another record. And we had simultaneously at the same time gone to your wedding and met Gary together. Rich and I, we were super impressed with him. And, he was a honcho. He's a super nice guy. One of those guys that, like, you could literally just talk to him about music for, like, 4 hours, and it wouldn't even feel like 10 minutes, right? The guy's so easy to talk to. Very, very super cool guy. And we ended up bringing him on as a producer. And what that looked like was we had kind of fleshed out about 8 songs, and we were going to do 3 songs that were kind of older Henry's Child, kind of old Andrew Smith era Henry's Child songs. And at the time, Gary was living in Bend. So it was kind of enough of a commute, and this actually started during the summer. So we went, and he would drive over to our studio in Salem, we would record a bunch, he'd take it home, send us all these copies, and we ended up not doing the record with Gary, not because it wasn't anything that he had done, but it was really for 2 reasons. Number one, the songs were so new, we didn't really have a good intimate relationship with them, so they were kind of played really stiff. And then secondly, Doug quit. So by the time that Doug quit Henry's Child, like the drums were kind of half done. So we're just like, oh my gosh. So it seemed like a very daunting task. First off, A, to find a drummer who would come and play it, and B, to be able to kind of include Gary at that time because it was starting to snow in Ben's was harder to get over. Then he ends up taking a job in LA. So by that time, he had moved on. Very cool. The guys who he recommended in Bend did an awesome job at mixing, and they were able to give us some of the Pro Tools tracks that we're currently using for the new record that are sort of the scratch tracks, sort of the reference tracks. But yeah, Gary is awesome, man. He is a stud, and he's got his own thing going.
He does. The project is called Elvis Simmons and the Memphis Strutters, and here's how it works. The deal is that renegade geneticists cloned Elvis and Gene Simmons, and they created this horrible hybrid called Elvis Simmons. So now, you're going to want to be Googling this. Gary is 6'4" in bare feet. On stage, he wears the white Elvis jumpsuit, the Gene Simmons Batwing makeup, and Gene Simmons dragon boots. Those are 6 inches, so he's about 6'10" on stage. It's a terrifying figure to have coming down the hall at you. Even if you know him, it's a little. Oh dear, this could go badly. What they play is a mashup. They play Kiss covers in a rockabilly style, and they play Elvis covers in a heavy guitar Kiss style, and it really works. Got a 4-piece horn section, 3 vocal backup singers dressed as with the makeup for Ace, Paul, and Peter, plus bass, guitar, and vocals. And they are razor tight, and it is a show. It is just absolute nonstop energy. It's not just a bunch of guys standing there rocking through plaster caster. It's a full-on show with the light show, the lasers, the smoke, striking.
Oh, it's amazing! It's amazing. Andrew and I saw him in Bend do Elva's show, and it was. I feel like I know you were there because we were hanging out and talking, but I feel like it was like a almost like a church, wasn't it?
It was. They were playing in a church, and Gary's been doing this for about 10 years now. Wow, and it's gone through several incarnations. The version in Bend was more like a musical theater kind of thing than a rock show.
Right. Sure.
But they got the songs out there, and he still kicks ass. And they've been gigging around L.A. lately, doing a lot of shows with Metalachi, the metal mariachi mashup. Was it last week? They sold out a 1,200-seat theater.
Nice.
And about a month before, it was on Halloween night, Elvis Simmons headlined the Whiskey a Go-Go. They're headlining the Whiskey.
That's awesome, man.
That's where who else headlined the Whiskey? The Doors, Guns N' Roses, Metallica. I mean, that's a prestigious slide.
That's good company, man. That's good.
Yeah, you can find the MP3s online. You can find them through Facebook. Elvis Simmons and the Memphis Strutters.
Okay.
A bunch of videos on YouTube of the show. I write some interstitial material from the band because there's a serious comedy element to it. Because with that, Elvis and Gene Simmons had a baby. How do you not write comedy around that?
That's pretty good.
I've seen it probably a dozen times live, and considering they're in LA and I'm in San Jose, that's a bit of a trek for a show.
Yeah, it is.
But it's worth it. They are just absolutely fantastic. I'm going to plug them again. Elvis Simmons and the Memphis Strutters. Elvis Simmons and the Memphis Strutters. coming soon to a theater near you.
Well, we'll definitely leave a link in the show notes. Well, Logan, that was awesome, man. Thank you so much for coming on to talk about music. And
thanks for having me, Thom. It's a lot of fun.
Some time and your family, dude. And so always appreciate talking to you, my friend.